being run at a business loss for a tax write-off. There was so little other radio stations made fun of it. The tower was so weak you couldn't even hear it some days. It was being run at a business loss for a tax write-off. The owners didn't care about it. It was falling apart. And Steve's friend said, man, the owners are moving to Florida. They're selling everything. They're retiring. Steve, if you don't buy this radio station, it's going to turn into elevator music. We need rock and roll, Steve. So Steve bought the radio station. He renamed it WZON for the Dead Zone. Created the Zone Corporation to run it. Built a brand new, big, fancy tower so we could hear it everywhere. Z62, 620 on the AM dial. WZON is what I used to listen to as a kid. And later, all Steve's DJ buddies said, Steve, we have to get into FM. FM is the future. So Steve bought another radio station, 100.3 on the FM dial, WKIT, K for King, and IT for the book he had just published, called It. Stephen King's rock station, WKIT 100.3 FM, is the nicest and the best station in town. It's what I listened to as an adult, and you should too. I don't mean like tonight in Bangor. I mean anywhere in the world for free on WKITFM.com. You can stream the radio live or from their website. You can download the WKIT app, and here's why you should. Stephen King's rock station is a locally owned, DJ-controlled station. There aren't many of these left. Most radio stations have a computer program that tell them what songs to play during what hour, to reach what demographic, to attach to advertising. That's how they make their money. But not Stephen King's rock station, folks. The DJs play whatever they want. You hear rock and roll on Stephen King's rock station you've never heard in your life. And one of our DJs, the guy from 7 to Midnight, is a guy named Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper, the rocker, has a syndicated radio show called Nights with Alice Cooper. Has anyone heard that show? Nights with Alice Cooper? If you like rock and roll, that show is solid gold. And we all get to listen to it. All of us. From Stephen King's rock station. Because Stephen King loves us. It's true. He told me. Did anyone see Gerald's Game on Netflix? Excellent, folks. I saw Gerald's Game before it was on Netflix in Bangor Mall Cinemas at the world premiere with Stephen King. We call it the advanced screening. The advanced screening for every single Stephen King movie is in Bangor, Maine for free for the locals. You get free popcorn. You get free water. You have a seat. And then Stephen King comes out and chats with everybody. And that's awesome. And then they hand out free Stephen King stuff. And that's awesome. And then Steve sits right next to some complete stranger in the audience who just holds his or her breath for 2 straight hours. Like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm going to touch Stephen King. My father gets... Watch that, folks. And I gotta tell you, I think it became the movie. Maximum Overdrive was the only restaurant in Herman, Maine, where Steve was living in the woods, a place called Dysart's. The original Dysart's is in Herman, Maine. The other one is right here to your left. Folks, if you can get a Maine blueberry pie, the Maine state dessert, from a Dysart's, you'll be doing something good for your soul. Best pie in town right there. And trust me, I've had every pie in this town. Best pie in town. Now, who's seen the new Creepshow episodes on Shudder? Anybody?
Some of them.
And some of them. You know, when people talk about rebooting the thing, man, I get twitchy. Right? They're going to take themselves too seriously. Not Greg Nicotero and not Shudder. It's pretty darn close to the old-fashioned, low-budget camp of the original. Now, the original Creepshow, 1982, had an episode called The Lonesome Death of Jordy Vera. A country farmer had a meteorite land in his back 40. He touched it. It went poorly for the farmer. played by Stephen King, and the longest he's ever been on film as an actor in his life. It's like a one-man show, almost completely, of Stephen King being a complete clown for the camera. If you ever see that thing, stop everything you're doing, watch it, have a laugh. Steve was coked out of his head for that one too. The farm was at the end of this road. The farm has since burned down, but it was right there. And the meteorite ended right here in the filming. Now, that double wide trailer in the woods of Herman, Maine, where Steve was living, he got evicted for non-payment of rent. You know, they shut off their own phone to try to save money, but nothing worked. The kids just took turns being sick, but they didn't have health insurance. That's where all the money went. And their old Plymouth kept breaking down. But just as Steve got evicted from that double wide trailer, he sold Carrie to Doubleday for a $2,500 advance. That's like getting $15,000 today. Steve spent every penny. He bought a new car. It was a Ford Pinto. Remember those things? They moved a family from the woods of Maine to the slums of Bangor. Tabby insisted they turn the phone back on. And then Carrie bombed. And they were broke all over again. They never sold out the advance. Steve never got another penny from the first edition Carrie. Steve said one time in an interview he couldn't give away a copy of Carrie out of the trunk of his Ford Pinto. That's not a feel-good story. When a new author in Bangor, Maine during a book signing, my mother dragged my father in 1974 to Betts Bookstore, downtown Bangor, Maine, to Stephen King's first book signing in history. Carrie was for sale for $5.95. If you bought a copy of the book and you waited until after the reading, Steve would sign it for you. My dad didn't want to waste $6. That book's worth over $6,000 today. People, my dad's a dummy. But Mom isn't. Mom made Dad buy the book anyway. Moms are smart and wonderful people. It's true. My mother felt bad for Stephen King. He was bombing at that reading. People were walking out on him. My mother made my father get a book and made him get it signed. And in 1991, my father bought Betts Bookstore. He was out of work, and the store had been on the market for months. My dad went to the owner and said, "How much for the store?" She said, "How much you got?" My dad said, "I've got my son's college fund." Sold. And my father became the owner of Betts Bookstore, the oldest bookstore in Bangor, Maine, and I became not the owner of a college fund. You don't know how I feel about that, do you, Samaya? I had already joined the Navy. I joined the Navy at 17 to get out of here. It was all their money anyway. They saved it for me. They did take me out to dinner to my favorite restaurant first, though. I got a good meal out of it. And then my dad bought a bookstore. And he found out there wasn't a single bookstore in Bangor, Maine with all of Stephen King's books on the shelf, which makes no sense. My father made sure he had every single Stephen King book on the shelf at Betts Bookstore downtown Bangor. And then Barnes and Noble came to town. Remember them? Oh, bad news. Except Stephen King had a soft spot in his heart for Betts Bookstore, the first store he'd ever signed a book in, where in 1974 he signed a book for my father, Stu Tinker. Not a lot of people were at that signing. Plenty of time to chat. They hit it off in 1974. They were both dirt poor. They lived in the same neighborhood, and over the years, their kids went to the same schools. I was a year behind Joe. My wife went to school with Naomi. When Barnes & Noble came to Bangor, Maine, Stephen King came to Betts Bookstore whenever he bought books. And folks, Stephen King buys a lot of books. He reads like it's a competition. They blew my mind and scared the crap out of me. The backstory of Derry is Bangor's history. The map of Derry is inspired by the map of Bangor. In the backstory of the booklet of Derry, Steve mentions the flood. In 1902, Bangor flooded out. He mentions the Great Fire. The fire of 1911 burned half of Bangor to the ground. He mentioned, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. Kind of snuck up on me there. Steve mentions the fire burned half of Bangor to the ground. He mentioned the Black Spot, a black officers club that caught fire and killed everyone inside. We had an officers club. It did catch fire, but no one died in that fire, and we didn't have segregation up here. And Steve mentions the Bradley Gang. Bank robbers shot dead in the streets of Derry. In 1937, the country's most wanted bank robbers, the Brady Gang, were shot dead in the streets of Bangor by the FBI. Steve and Tabby flew home the next day, which is usual. His cowboy boots were tripped traveling on a bridge, and his van went troll under a bridge. But not any bridge, folks. These bridges to your left and your right, the canals of Bangor. Steve's imagination puts a troll under these bridges. That's how the booklet starts in his head. Bangor becomes the location of the booklet because we have these canals. Bangor becomes Derry, and I get a second career. All from a children's story. Now, when my father bought Bet's bookstore, he moved it what is going to be ahead of us to the left at Patty Murphy's Pub. Patty's was a two-story Bet's bookstore. First story was new, second story was used. So you came into that shop. Adrian Mellon is thrown off this bridge here to our left, and Pennywise takes a big old bite out of him, right underneath us right here. Do we remember why Adrian Mellon was thrown off the bridge in the booklet?
Adrian.
He was gay. In 1984, a young gay man named Charlie Howard was thrown off this bridge to our left. He drowned face down in 7 inches of water right here. He had an asthma attack and he drowned right underneath us right here. Charlie's death was the first recognized death by hate crime in Maine. But I grew up here in the 80s, we had gay friends. It was not good for them. What you read in the book here that happened to Adrian Mellon is consistent with what happened to Charlie Howard from the fair to here. And when he put that in the book here, he broke this town right in half. He put us right in the middle of a conversation about gay rights in the 80s. No one in rural America wanted to have that conversation. Bangor did. Bangor became the starting point for gay rights in Maine. All the pride stuff you see downtown is here year-round. There's a bit more in June, but not that much. When Charlie was thrown over, there's a rainbow-colored crosswalk. To the left of this building, there's a building here to our left. And near that, if you walk down the steps next to it, there's a monument there to Charlie. Charlie died July 7th, 1984. Every July 7th, there's a ceremony right here. People throw white flowers into the stream for Charlie. Stephen King took something terrible that happened right here. He gave it a very loud, very public voice in the book and he changed my town forever with a pen. $50,000 on this building right here, and it wasn't a matching grant here. But after Carrie bombed, Steve didn't have $15 a week. Right where this sawdust pile is, there used to be 3 buildings jammed together right here. But now they live in the city. Tabby could walk to work. Tabby escaped to get away from her abusive father. Right here. Now, in 1974, when the first they don't stroke the way she used to walk to work. And that was her life with Bill Thompson. Remember Bill Thompson from Doubleday? He was the editor. Steve didn't have an agent yet. He hadn't met Kirby yet. And so it was up to Bill. Bill was trying to sell the paperback rights of Carrie. The hardcover Carrie had bombed, but there was hope. Publishing was changing. And it all started with a phrase, "I'm waiting for the paperback." People started to realize if you just wait a few months, you can get the exact same book cheaper in paperback. And the other thing going on was movies. People would go see a movie, and then they go buy the paperback. Paperbacks, for the first time ever, were becoming huge money makers, and no one in publishing knew what to do about that. And there Steve is with a book for sale called Carrie in paperback. and a movie coming Carrie by Brian De Palma starring Sissy Spacek and a young hot actor from a sitcom called Welcome Back Kotter. In his first ever movie role, a kid named John Travolta. People were out of their minds over John Travolta and Sissy Spacek. We're going to talk more about that, but first, point your cameras to the right. I'm 2 blocks from the Bangor Police Department and Bangor's Duck of Justice. The Duck of Justice, people. Check out Bangor Police Department's mascot, a taxidermy duck of justice.
Come up on
Anyway, I keep getting yelled at. I can't stop on this road. To your right, built in 1959, standing 31 feet tall, is the tallest Paul Bunyan statue in America. Not the biggest. The Paul Bunyan comes to life and chases him down the street with his axe. But in the long miniseries in 1990 with Tim Curry, Paul Bunyan wasn't there, and I was angry. Then Chapter 1 came out that Barbara Nanny made, and Paul Bunyan was in the background of that whole thing, and I was like, any minute now, here he comes. Any minute now, nothing. Chapter 2 came out, Paul Bunyan got his scene. Paul Bunyan is a star. Best scene in the whole movie. Now, if you ever want a good picture of Paul Bunyan, go to the third story of the Hollywood Casino parking garage. Because from down here, he's big. But from up there, he's creepy. It's true. Sue calls him exquisitely ugly. The new scoreboard with the clock and the Jumbotron screen. Folks, this is our Little League field. This is one of the nicest fields in New England. It's on ESPN every year. One of the conditions of us having this field, there can be no advertising in the field. Papa John's, Aflac, maintain the quality of a professional major league playing field before every game by volunteers. More than 300 games a year happen right here. We're so lucky to have this thing. The Thomas Hill Standpipe was built in 1897. That is the only wood-covered water tank of its kind left in America. That is a single metal tank that holds 1.75 million gallons of water. See this yellow house to the right? This is my parents' house. I grew up in this yellow house when the booklet was published, living next to the standpipe. And you might think, ooh, Jamie, that's cool. Nope. No, it's not. And part of my ongoing therapy, before the guys out to take pictures, we were talking about it, so there I was. I'm a teenage boy. Every night of my life, my whole head is in a king book. But one night was special, folks. I'm not even making this up. I would. I'm not proud. I don't have to. One night, I was reading about a boy named Stanley. Stanley was a bird watcher. Stanley used to sit on that bench right there. He'd look at the birds in this bird bath, and he'd write in his notebook the birds he saw. And one day, he sees that door is open. That door was locked in 1940. It didn't open again until 1991. So in the 50s, when Stanley's on that bench, this is locked, but it's open. He hears carnival music. He comes closer. He smells popcorn. He goes inside, and 2 dead boys start slowly and creepily start coming down the stairs with Stanley. And my mother calls up, Jamie, it's time for bed. Scared the crap out of me. I don't mean for like one night. That's not embarrassing at all. Nope. I'm a teenage boy. I have a dog named Barney. Barney was a good boy. I took Barney for a walk every night until those rocks. Then I took Barney for a run. Stephen King made me afraid of the dark in my own corner. I ran home afraid of the dark, past that door for months. Stephen King is a jerk. Hundreds. Would you live right there?
No. They give a discount for those people to buy.
No. That's a pricey house right there. I would not live right there for nothing.
You live across the street from it.
Yeah, but you're not living on them.
I don't care. They come up, they can move.
I wouldn't even. This lady's never said it's haunted, but she's never put in a pool. Remember that young boy named Georgie in the booklet? Georgie and Bill lived on Jackson Street. And on a stormy day, Georgie made a paper boat, the SS Georgie. His brother Bill covered the SS Georgie in wax, and the SS Georgie set sail for adventure from this first house on the left. This was Bill and Georgie's home right here. The SS Georgie set sail for adventure from right here. But like every paper boat, in every storm, the SS Georgie fell into a storm drain at the corner of Witcham and Jackson, creating one of the most iconic scenes in horror history. Now this is the risky part of the whole tour. This street was never supposed to be carved into apartments, and now there's not a lot of spot to park a car or let you guys out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come over here, right? I'm gonna open the door. We can kind of squeeze out, right? We're gonna go right. You see that storm drain right there to the left? That is a storm drain where Georgie met Pennywise. Right there. And as luck would have it, I happen to have a Pennywise. Now, we cannot loiter here, but I'm going to go stand in traffic so you can go take a picture. I'll see you guys right out there. The white porch is for sale for $727,000. You could live right here. 28 West Broadway. The current owner, Senator Susan Collins. That's her house and it's for sale. She just moved out. This little White House is a nice place, right? This is Stephen King's guest house. This is the guest house. She bought this house to save it. It was falling apart. The previous owner of this house was not a nice guy, was not a good neighbor. This thing was crumbling. Tabby got sick of it. Steve bought the guy out. Paid way too much money to get this guy out of the house. So a firm from New Jersey came up and they wrapped this thing in plastic. It cost them $2 million to restore this house. They've got over $3 million into this thing to save it. It currently assesses for $1 million. They could have just tore it down and started over. Instead, they saved the second oldest house on the street. The oldest house on the street's pretty darn nice too. It's an old Victorian mansion. We used to call it the Arnold House. Now we call it the King House. Steve's gates always open. Don't go in there, ever, for any reason. It will not go well. And when Steve bought this house in 1980, there was no fence. Steve had a fence made, and here's got the first K with the spider and the three-headed dragon, and then here's the gate Steve made famous by posing in front of right here. And then the newest thing on this property, before I let you guys out to take your pictures, is a sculpture. This sculpture was a 300-year-old tree. The top of this tree was rotted and bug infested. They cut the top of the tree off so it wouldn't collapse on the house in a storm. But for 6 years, that was a 20-foot tall stump. We all wondered what it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a tall Tim Curry Pennywise with balloons. My father thought it would be a large, dark tower. Tabby told the artist I want nature, I want books, and I want King references, and that's what they came up with. That sculpture was made with a chainsaw. That's chainsaw art. I can't draw a circle. Folks, you made it. It took you all afternoon. The first step is pavement. The second step is dirt. No grass has grown here in 30 years. Let's go on out. Please